Welcome to Speaking of Schaumburg. I'm Village President Al Larson. In this episode, we'll get an update on Schaumburg's economic development. Then we'll catch up with the Springfield Nature Center. And we'll close out the program with a closer look at Schaumburg's Transportation Department. All of this and more today here on Speaking of Schaumburg. With 9.5 million square feet of retail and commercial space, 12 million square feet of office space, and 13.5 million square feet of industrial space, the village of Schaumburg is the largest center of economic development in the state of Illinois outside the city of Chicago. Joining us today with an update on the village's economic prospects is Economic Development Manager Matt Frank. Matt, welcome to Speaking of Schaumburg.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now, what does an economic development guy do?
I get to do a lot of...
And how do you do it?
I can do a lot of fun things. The main thing is obviously marketing the community for Schaumburg and attracting new businesses. So out there working to call on new businesses who are expanding the area, tell them why they should locate in Schaumburg. I get to work with developers and business owners and help them fill their space in the community as well.
Now I understand that there's an economic incentive offered by Cook County called 6B. Is that what it's called?
That's correct. It's a property tax incentive for manufacturers and those who do industrial work to fill vacant industrial space. So buildings that have been sitting on the market for 2 years that haven't had any luck filling new tenants, that tool is used to bring in to reduce that property tax to help bring new jobs and business to the community and county. That's kind of to level the playing field between Cook County and DuPage? Is that yeah, unfortunately, Cook County, our businesses are taxed a little higher than you would find in DuPage or Kane or some of the neighboring counties, so it helps us to stay competitive with those markets. Now tell us about some of the things that are pending out there or in the works. They're going to happen after the first of the year. And this program is going to be coming out after the first of the year. So, well, 2013 is shaping up to be a great year. You know, we had a solid run in 2012 with filling some of the vacant spaces, a lot of new restaurants. But 2013, we've got some new office users that are coming to the market. So Catamaran is bringing 1,200 employees to Windy Point 2. That's a boat, isn't it? It's actually a pharmacy benefits company. So they're consolidating some business locations and locating here in Schaumburg. So they've been working on the parking lot, making sure there's enough spaces there. Windy Point is at Meacham and 90 across from our convention center. So that'll really help the hotels and restaurants in the area and hopefully bring new business to the convention center. Those buildings, who built those? Was that a Fifield? That was Fifield, yeah, exactly. Okay. A development back in the early 2000s. And Comcast and Phoenix University is next door, so they're doing very well. And this will fill that vacant building. There's a 5-story and a 7-story building. Which is the This will be the bigger one. Okay, the 7-story. Yep. Fill the entire building? Entire building. So 300,000 square feet of space being occupied, which is fantastic for us. 1,200 employees? 1,200 employees. That's going to be good for the restaurants right there. Jason's Deli and Morton's have to be very, very happy. Absolutely. You know, when you mentioned restaurants, what are some of the restaurants that are out there, lurking out there in the... Well, we've got... or just come online this year. Well, this year we've had Vidalia on Mall Drive. We had Longhorn Steakhouse on Gulf Road just outside the mall. We had Buffalo Wild Wings on Meacham. So we've gotten quite a few new restaurants in town. We've also got development plans right now that are going before Zoning Board and Village Board. Hopefully we'll see some new restaurants there. Those would include On the Border. Finally, we'll get our first Potbelly in town. What's On the Border? It's a Mexican restaurant similar to a Chevy's or a La Magdalena that we have in town. So okay. A nice addition in that area. Is that the old Audit Bureau site? That is, right across from Zurich Towers on the west side of Meacham Road there. So Potbelly's and On the Border and what else? Rhodey, which is a Mediterranean restaurant. They're very popular in the Loop. They're starting to expand. This will be one of the first locations. It's kind of like a Chipotle, but Mediterranean style. So you assemble it as you go, very fresh ingredients and so forth. Okay, what is a Mediterranean restaurant? Explain this to me, will you, man? We have a fine establishment, Pita House, with a hummus and kebabs and all that type of stuff. So something similar to that, yeah. And that's going to call what? Rhodey, R-O-T-I. And the development is called Meacham Gather? Meacham Gather, yeah. Ooh. So a nice spot for lunch or dinner after day of work at the office next door. So what's happening with the old Entourage site? You know, that's a beautiful building. It seemed to me that somebody should be able to come in and do something with it. It's one of our larger buildings. It's 20,000 square feet. It's got beautiful banquet space upstairs. So we continue to reach out to some of the larger restaurant groups and developers in the area to see if we can't lure somebody in there. But obviously the success of the restaurants around there with Weber Grill and Ted's is now Lincoln Whiskey, which is doing fantastic. They've got hour-and-a-half waits on the weekends. So we've got a lot of energy in that area, so hopefully we'll see some action in 2013.
So an hour-and-a-half wait to get cream and mushroom soup with a little whiskey in there?
Yes, yeah, they're doing very, very well.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And Weber's been doing well for quite some time now.
Yes, they have, yeah.
So, and how's John Barleycorn doing?
Barleycorn is doing great. They've had some great entertainment, and they've done a lot of fundraising and efforts with our fire department and so forth. So really reaching out back to the community again, trying to get more involved. So it's exciting to see them.
Now that office space, once that building gets filled with catamaran folks, what does it do in terms of the occupancy of our office sector? Does it make any dent at all?
No, absolutely. That 300,000 square feet will bring us back down under the 20%. We've been kind of struggling with major vacant office space, but that'll bring us down closer to 17%. And then we've got a new office development, brand new construction. The anesthesiologist group out of Park Ridge is looking to build new headquarters. So they have submitted plans to build right across from Barleycorn on the south side, next to Experian there, a beautiful 40,000 square foot facility. So they're going through the review process now.
How tall a building will it be?
It'll be 4 stories. It'll be similar to the other AVMA and the American Dermatology Group here in town. It's kind of a gathering spot for corporate speakers and meeting space. So another reason to come to Schaumburg.
How's the convention center doing? I know that it opened with great fanfare.
Yeah.
And it went through a kind of a dip as the entire economy went through a bit of a dip. How's it doing now this year?
It's doing very well, and projections for 2013 are going to be the best ever. So sales are up. We're getting a lot of renewals and long-term agreements for shows and events out there. So not only your traditional business shows, but you're also getting some of the athletic competitions. I know there's some big gymnastic tournaments going on right there now, as well as the jewelry show and some of these trade shows that bring in the weekend crowds.
It really brings the folks in, the jewelry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the largest shows they have at the convention center.
Have they signed a long-term contract?
They've been doing it for 3 years now, and we expect them to continue to do it for
hopefully. And still the weddings are there too, right? The large weddings?
Yeah. The private events are still phenomenal. It's a gorgeous facility. It impresses everybody that goes there. So they continue to do well with the weddings and other private networking events.
I would imagine the Marriott's got to be pleased with what's happening with that Renaissance over there, because it's really truly a magnificent looking facility.
Well, and we got some national recognition through the C-Vent. We were named one of the top 50 meeting destinations in the nation. So,
really?
Due to the convention center and all the hotels and activities we've got going around town. So, I know our convention bureau, convention center, village are all very proud of that achievement.
Now, there's something called a Golden Corridor project. What is that about?
Golden Corridor is a coalition of manufacturers, schools, and then government coming together to identify issues and help train the next workforce for these companies here in our backyard. So we talk about the Amadas, the Mazaks. We're working with the high schools to do some internship programs, raise awareness, take them to different open houses, as well as downtown to some of the big events like FabTech and IMTS, these big trade shows to help them understand that manufacturing is a dark, dingy job.
Yeah.
It's
an
computers.
Internship, it turns into real jobs too, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Amada just hosted an internship appreciation program. They had 20 kids, and 10 of them got full-time employment just going through a 6-week internship program. So it's been a huge success.
Have we talked to Harper College at all about partnering in some of these things?
Yeah, no, Harper's one of the leading advocates. They've reinstated their manufacturing curriculum, so they're offering certificates in 4 different programs to address these concerns. So they've been at the table and engaged in this, and they're actually hosting a manufacturing work camp during the summer for junior high kids. So we're reaching out to Keller Junior High and some of the District 54 schools to see if we can't get them involved in that. So,
and of course, how's Woodfield doing? I know there's under new management now.
Yeah, there's unfortunately a transition from Taubman to Simon, but we are looking forward to it, and we're meeting with new ownership and GM.
What's the vacancy rate over there? I heard it was.
Oh, it's minimal. It's 3% if that.
3%,
so
yeah.
they've got a few small holes to fill.
Woodfield, there's streets of Woodfield,
yeah, Streets of Woodfield went through change too, but they're still doing very well, and the entertainment and restaurants over there are very successful. So they're putting a little money in there, fixing up the garage and the courtyard area. So we'll see some minor changes over there.
So we can see more restaurants this year, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe even a couple of hotels. Is that a possibility?
There's talks about one more hotel, at least at Roselle 9. So we'll see what else can come.
Okay. Well, look forward to it. Well, Matt, you do a great job. I mean. People are going to try to steal you away. Just say no. So
I love Schaumburg. I'll be here.
Well, bye.
Right.
Hey, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. If you find yourself coming down with a case of cabin fever, This winter, the Spring Valley Nature Center will be just what the doctor ordered. Find out more next here on Speaking of Schaumburg. A little chilly weather is hardly an excuse to stay indoors all winter. Offering 135 acres of natural beauty and numerous events and programs for people of all ages, Spring Valley Nature Center is the place to be. Here today to fill us in on their many winter offerings is Conservation Services Manager Dave Brooks. Well, Dave, welcome once again to Speaking of Schaumburg.
Yeah,
now, what does a Conservation Services Manager do?
Good question. No, I'm the manager of the Nature Center, so I oversee the staff that puts together the programs and the events and takes care of the grounds, takes care of the animals at the Heritage Farm, things like that. So I guess I'm the supervisor of the staff there.
How many staffers do you have?
We have 10 full-time staff, including myself, probably about 20 part-time staff, most of those being our program leaders, and then over 200 volunteers as well. So,
who develops these programs? I mean, you've got such innovative programming over there.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. You know what? It's really a team effort. That we do have two program coordinators. One, Mary Rice at the Nature Center. She's the Environmental Education Program Coordinator, and then we have a program coordinator at the Heritage Farm as well. And they have other program staff who will give them ideas. But a lot of the new and kind of creative ideas come from their respective program staffs, and then special events and things like that. I contribute as well.
You have team meetings or something to work on this, and okay, we do this, we do that, we have to do this. This will infringe on that. We can't do this that much.
Oh yeah, there's got to be that coordination. So.
Okay, 135 acres of natural beauty. How much of that is native prairie now?
We have, I don't have an exact quantity, but over 50 acres that we've replanted to prairie, and of course each year we plant more. So.
What's your goal in terms of the ultimate size of?
Our conservation master plan for Spring Valley calls for most of the property being restored to native prairie, and in pre-settlement times, pretty much all of Spring Valley was prairie. There were oak groves in Schaumburg up near the Sarah's Grove area. There was oak groves up in Hoffman Estates, and of course Bussey Woods to our east. But Spring Valley itself was all prairie and marsh. But we are not going that route. But most of it will eventually be tall grass prairie, along with some scattered groves of oak trees. And
where did the name Spring Valley come from?
The history that I've received is that it came from Mina Redeker, one of the residents there back in the early 20th century. Here, there were many artesian springs, naturally flowing year-round springs on the property that the farmers made use of, and she thought it was a quaint and poetic name, I guess. She decided to call the area Spring Valley.
It was a peony farm too, wasn't it? Didn't they sell
Yeah, and that came later. That came, John Redeker was the one who built the cabin in the 1920s, and he learned peony farming from the Clems, who were also a prominent family, which a lot of people still know about because they still own Clem Nursery. But the Clems were acclaimed peony propagators in the area. They were the experts apparently, and so John learned how to raise and market and sell peonies from the Clems. He started his own peony farm there, and that's kind of a neat little feature of Spring Valley for folks who come out there in the late spring around Memorial Day. There's still a lot of those peonies that he planted that are still there, and people can see in all their glory. So it's kind of neat.
The Garden Club has kind of taken over that as a project, haven't they?
Yeah, they've the Schaumburg Community Garden Club several years ago took over. We had cleared a small, about a quarter acre of kind of second growth woods near the Merkle cabin, where a lot of peonies were striving to grow underneath those trees.
You could see them just come up part way, but not enough light for them at this point. But every year, you could see the rows of.
Yeah, and there's still, you can see some of the rows growing through the woods. But the Garden Club, they not only maintain that area that we clear, but then they would transplant peonies from other parts of the woods where they weren't getting enough light, and they would put them in this display area. So.
What are some of the most popular programs that you have over there, Dave?
Oh boy,
especially in the wintertime.
Well, the wintertime, we do. I guess one thing I'll talk about in just a bit is the fact that we rent snowshoes, but we do offer programs that involve the use of snowshoes. A lot of times it's a family program or a kids program, but that of course depends on whether or not there's snow on the ground. We do offer programs for kids throughout the winter months on weekends, things to do with animal tracking, with where the birds go in the winter. We do also make use of the Merkle log cabin to teach kids about pioneer skills and things like that. And there's a program called Cooking at the Cabin where kids can come down and they can learn how to cook food over a fire in the hearth. And so they'll usually make something in the Dutch oven, cornbread, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what's on the menu this year, but it's an opportunity for them to learn to cook as well as to get a better understanding as to how people live.
You got the nature area, the native prairie, the wetlands, the marsh, but then you have a heritage farm. How did that originate?
Well, the heritage farm was, I guess, back in the early days when the master plan was first being developed. It was proposed at that time that we do some sort of a representation of the historical farming culture. And since there were some original farm buildings and old farmhouses on the property at that time, it seemed to be a natural fit. And what we've kind of grown into over the years is a realization that interpreting the natural world and interpreting how people made use of the natural world through farming, there's a natural way that those kind of go together very well. You can tell the land story from the perspective of native prairies and wildlife and things like that, and also bring in the human element and talk about the German farmers here and how they.
I think that's something that Ellsworth Meineke wanted too. He wanted to have that farm, showing how people worked the area, worked the land back around the turn of the century.
Sure, and the Heritage Farm has ended up, of course, being one of our more popular features out there. People love to come and see the animals.
It is, yeah. Now you got a sugar bush coming up this spring?
Yes, that's as we get into winter, we anticipate that. It's the Sugar Bush Fair is one of our largest events of the year. It's always in the middle of March, somewhere around there. This year it's on March 16th and 17th. It's a Saturday, Sunday morning. Feature a big pancake breakfast that's provided by Whole Foods Market, and then.
Are they still doing that, sponsoring?
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
So it's a wonderful. I mean, obviously it's a great way for them to get their name out in the community. But they do provide all the food for it. So it's an organic breakfast with pure maple syrup, and along with that, there's some educational components. People can go out and see how the Native Americans would harvest a maple sap for sugar. We have a couple pioneer reenactors who kind of interpret that aspect of it, and then we have our own volunteers that show how we make maple syrup at Spring Valley.
200 volunteers. Now, you need a lot of these folks to help burn the prairie right over here, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the volunteers help with just about every aspect of operations out there that you can think of. They do assist with programs. Most of our program staff are trained and they're paid staff, but we do have some volunteers who help with that. There's volunteers that take care of the livestock at the farm. There's volunteers that are trained to burn, to help us with our prescribed burns on our natural areas and our prairies. There's volunteers that come out and help with seed collection, planting projects, all sorts of things.
So how many visitors does Spring Valley bring to town?
Well, we do keep track of the number of program participants and attendees at our special events, and over the years, Spring Valley's attendance, I mean, as more and more people find out that we're there, our attendance has grown from year to year.
I didn't know that was there. I lived in town 20-some years.
And we hear that all the time. As long as I've been there, we continue to hear that. But we actually, in 2012, we passed a milestone. We tallied over 100,000 visitors for the first time ever. We've always kind of hovered somewhere around 80,000, 90,000. It's been growing. It all depends, in some respects, on the weather. When the weather's nice, of course, people want to go for a walk at nature areas. But
you guys do a great job, and I tell you, from the village standpoint, it's great to have a park district far-sighted enough to be able to preserve that land in its natural state and bring back the turn of the century farming that you've done. It's just really great, really great. Dave,
good. Oh.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. I'm glad to be here.
From buses to bikes and trains to planes, Schaumburg offers a number of ways to get from point A to point B. Find out more here next. And speaking of Schaumburg. Recognizing the strategic link that Schaumburg provides to Chicago and many other suburbs, the village offers numerous convenient ways to navigate the community and surrounding areas. Here to lend some insight on Schaumburg's transportation services, our Senior Transportation Planner, Richard Bascom, and Director of Transportation, June Johnson. Welcome to Schaumburg, June.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Tell me about the transportation department. It's not just planes and trains, it's other things too.
It's planes, trains, it's bikeways, it's addressing traffic throughout Schaumburg, and it's transit such as the train station. We also have the trolley services, we have a dial-a-ride service. We have a whole slew of different transportation options, including walking.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Jogging, walking.
Jogging, walking.
I see that a lot on the bike paths.
We have quite a few bike paths too. We've got 89 miles.
Close to 90 miles, right?
Yeah, okay. Close to about 9 miles of on-street and off-street bike paths.
And what's the latest addition to the bikeways system?
I think the latest big one would be Irving Park Road. It's a little more than a year ago, and Wright Boulevard. They kind of came online about the same time, down in the Spectrum industrial area near the metro station. Another big connection is between Schaumburg, now in Hanover Park. Down at Atcher Park, the Park District completed some improvements that widened that bike path, and we worked actively with Hanover Park and actually making that connection between the two communities for another 1.25 mile bike path.
So there's a link between Schaumburg and Hanover Park. And there's also a link between Schaumburg and Hoffman Estates, right? They've been partners with us from the beginning. They've
been partners with us for a while now. They've taken a much more active role probably in the last 4 or 5 years in developing their network. But on our Bicycle Advisory Committee, they've had a seat on there for 32 years. So they've been with us for a long time. They've just been a little more active more recently in developing their facilities. Now there's a major path that they put in, was that on Higgins Road?
Higgins Road, that's correct.
From where to where?
It is. Right now it goes from Roselle Road and Higgins Road east, almost to Plum Grove Road in Plum Grove and Higgins in Schaumburg. So there's about a very small, maybe a 500-foot section that kind of reverts to 5-foot sidewalk, and then you can connect into Schaumburg's Plum Grove Road bike path, our Woodfield Road bike path to Bussey, and our Higgins Road continues on.
Okay.
So,
all right. Now we have a dial-a-ride program?
We do, and again, Richard runs that program for us, and he's run it for us 12 years, although the program is more than 30 years old.
It's a great program. I think it's really unique among the Chicago suburbs. Schaumburg's always been very progressive and I think forward-thinking in looking at transportation and the need for different transportation options. So our dial-a-ride service, we use the minibuses, which seat about 15 people, and it provides close to 80,000 rides per year. We get funding from that from PACE. They provide about 1/4 of the funding, and then we also get money from fares too. So it's not solely sustained by village resources. There's a combination of funding.
How many dial-a-ride buses do we have? Are they green? Are those the ones that are?
You have seen some green buses
yes,
out there,
yes.
And those are special buses that PACE is trying out. And we don't know how much longer we're going to have them. They're green because they're actually green buses, and you could probably explain a little bit more about what the green means.
The green is just that it's, as Director Johnson said, it's a test bus from PACE for hybrid kind of fuels. So that's part of the difference. It runs very much like a hybrid, like a Prius or another hybrid vehicle would run, in that there's a certain amount of the trip when you step on the gas to go. Part of it is with the hybrid fuels, and then it transitions to regular fuel when you reach a certain speed limit.
And then when you're in idle, it uses electrical.
Tell me about the trolley.
Tell you about the trolley.
Yeah.
Again, all of our great services.
That's iconic. I mean that area, the regional area around Woodfield is. I mean that's a goose that's laying the golden eggs, sales tax, and so we're investing money in
our trolley runs Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays during the year, but then from Thanksgiving until New Year's, we run it 7 days a week. Although we did have this year, our biggest weekend was Veterans Day weekend, and we were running Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that weekend, and we had 1,400 riders. So that was probably one of the biggest weekends we had. Normally, we probably have about 4,000 riders a month on the trolley, and then over the holiday season, obviously, that increases.
So it's just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, except for Thanksgiving, like during the period between Thanksgiving and New Year's, we run it 7 days a week.
The stores like that service?
Oh, definitely. Because what happens, the malls are pretty crowded around those areas. People can park once, and then if they want to go to one of the other malls or visit them, they can get on the trolley. They don't have to move their car. And that actually helps with both their time savings and also it makes it more convenient, and it's also fun. I mean, the kids love getting on the trolley.
Let's segue over to the airport.
Talking about the airport, we actually have a lot of people that fly into the airport that are going to the convention center.
Really?
Yes.
How do you know? How do you track that?
We track that. When they come in, if they come in during the regular normal business hours, we basically ask them, what their purpose was here, where they're heading to, and we track how many people flew in and how many cars were rented, how many people came in maybe just to eat at Pilot Pete's, how many people came in for a business meeting, if they're coming in for shopping for the day or maybe for the weekend, if they're going to rent a car or stay in a hotel. We kind of like to keep a good base to see what the kind of economic impact the airport is having on the area.
So they fly into the airport for meetings at the convention center?
Definitely. That's definitely. Or for meetings in one of the other businesses. We track, and we have probably on the average about, on a monthly basis, I get a report, and we probably have people flying in from at least 20 different states. And as far away as, New York, California, they fly in, and they may just be coming in for an overnight visit, or they may sometimes just come in to eat at Pilot Pete's.
The $100 hamburger, huh?
Well, or $200 hamburger these days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Well, that's great. That's great to know that.
The state recently did an economic impact study to determine, just what kind of impact are the airports in the Illinois area having on the economy. And they came back, they interviewed our stakeholders out at the airport, found out how many employees they have, took a look at what type of flights we had coming in, and they found out that the Schaumburg Airport has an $18.9 million economic impact on the region.
Okay, that's great. We also have a helistop, don't we?
We have a helistop located up at American Lane, and that's used for usually drop-off and pick-up. We've had people fly in there, possibly for a meeting. Somebody will get picked up there and then come back out. We also have quite a few helicopters out at the airport, including the news helicopters. We have NBC, ABC, WGN, and Fox News.
So we got the planes, we got the automobiles. You take care of that too, right?
We also have the trains. Take care of the train station as well, and the buses. The only thing we don't have is boats. So
we could borrow a river from Naperville or something.
Right, right, or maybe the little lake out in front there.
Yeah. Well, you guys have been pretty busy doing a great job making sure the trains run on time, although it's Metro's problem, right? Ways of getting around. I mean, we're offering options to people.
Right. We have a new coffee vendor out at the train station too, and he's offering a different kind of service. He actually is affiliated with a car repair shop, and if you come there and you want to drop off your keys, gives you a complimentary cup of coffee, and then you go on the train, and when you come back, your car will be back in the same spot and have been serviced during the day, get an oil change or whatever.
How's it working? Well,
so far, it's working really well. It's what happened was the gentleman came to us when we had an opening for that vendor spot and said, "I'm driving people here to the train station almost every day because they, come to my shop, they drop off their car, and then they need a ride." So I thought, why not maybe have that service here?
That's great. Well, thank you, June. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Come back again.
Enjoyed it.
We'll talk further, hopefully. Learn more about the trolley and trains and planes and automobiles. That'll do it for this edition of Speaking of Schaumburg. Join us again next month for an all-new episode. Until then, I'll see you around town.